Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Williams, and welcome to Explaining Hemp. I just can't get enough of that intro. I am so thankful to, let's just call it Hemp Badge Tracker and Justin Trowbridge. I know I wasn't supposed to give credit, but gosh, I'm so thankful for that intro because it is just beautiful. Today, we are joined by, not that side, over there, Mr. Stuart Lyle with Lyle Tax Services out of Anchorage, Alaska. I've got an Alaskan business on today. I'm super excited. And today we're going to talk about probably the most boring but vitally essential part of your business, which is accounting and financial foundation of your hemp business. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, before we get started, let's go ahead and pray this thing in. So if you'll bow your heads with me and pray. Thank you, Heavenly Father. I thank you for this day. It's so beautiful out here in Alaska, and I thank you for all the goodness that you're going to bring to this broadcast. Father God, anoint the lips of Stuart, anoint my lips so that we can bring the education to the people and help them understand hemp as the powerful, world-changing plant that it is, and the importance of stewarding your money well so that you can be a good financial, a sound financial business. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. All right, my friends. So let's go ahead and get started. With every episode of Explaining Hemp, we do hemp news. Hemp news is exciting because with all the pain and suffering going on in the world, hemp is hope for not only Alaska's future, but America's future. So let's go ahead and talk about what's going on in the world of hemp. I think this is a super cool moment right now in American history, but at the same time, I think it's way overdue. There's a headline that I can't wait to share with you guys today. And so let me bring up Hemp Industry Daily. Wait, is it sharing it? Can you guys see it? No, it's not sharing it yet. Okay, hold on. We're gonna try it again. Try it again to share the screen here. It gives me a big old error. Says nope, can't do that one. Okay, let's try this one right here. I'll try that one. Hey, there we go. Second time's a charm. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna start with Hemp Industry Daily. Still, we're in the season of planning ahead. If you're planting now here in Alaska, we're probably maybe this week, moving into next week, looking at planting, right? So looking at some things as far as fertilizers and hemp plant nutrition, right? Important to be up to date on that. But I want to bring you to this little article right here. Can you see where I'm circling? The USDA to research hemp ingredients in skin and personal care products. This is the biggest news I think out there. You know, we all know that the federal government is behind the times when it comes to recognizing cannabis and hemp as medicine and good for you and a supplement to your endocannabinoid system that you as a human being already have. Okay, so we know that. So with those of us that are awakened to that, when the government finally decides to wake up to and come online and start doing some research, we're like, oh, yay, finally. And then we go, well, what are they going to find and how are they going to spin it to help them? Do you ever think like that? I do sometimes. So I'm really interested to see what the United States Department of Agriculture will research regarding hemp oil and skin and personal care products. Remember, skin is your biggest body. It's your biggest organ, and you can absorb so much through your skin. So, you know, it's vitally important. And I'd love to see what the research is because it's going to be all good because it's hemp. All right. So what else we got going on? 5 strategies for making cannabis-infused beverages. Now, if you didn't know, hemp by itself can become a very nutritional milk by taking hemp seed and mixing it with water. It's just that easy. Blend it together and you have hemp milk. Okay, a little bit of honey and it's sweet and probably a more nutritional like formula for your babies than what we currently have. Hey, there's a great article here about how hemp could become a common automotive. No, so hold on, guys. I said no. Sorry, guys, a little bit of parenting needs. All right. So hemp being an automotive component. Come on, guys, since like 1941, we have talked about Henry Ford making the first hemp car, right? Well, now we can do it, and we see it. Porsche made one. There's just a great opportunity for the car to be made out of hemp, the inside to be made out of hemp, and not only that, but for it to run on hemp fuel. Hemp, hemp, hooray, right? Okay. We are looking at carbon footprints. This carbon credit thing, I really need to get educated in that. And then last week we talked about cannabis extraction companies reducing energy costs. So, all right. So there's some quick headlines on that. Come back here. Let me, check out our comment section. Hold on, guys. Oh, we have I don't know your name because it's in Arabic, but hello, welcome to the broadcast. We'll go ahead and stop sharing that screen. Let's see if we've got anything else in the world of, there's a global world. I want to talk about this really quick. Let's talk about the global world of hemp. Okay, so let me get over here and share this one. Now, Stuart, I chose him specifically because he has worked with cannabis businesses and that super important thing called IRS tax code 280E. We'll talk about that here shortly. But looking at some of the global hemp news, we have a German company fighting for the decree on import of hemp leaves. Like, they're just leaves, right? And it's so silly because it's that leaf and it's so profound and you know it, like you know what it is, but there's nothing in a leaf that's going to get you high. No. So like, do we have to ban it? Do we have to get scared of it? I don't know. So anyway, read about that there. This is hemptoday.net. And so despite a tough market, CBD isolate sellers are not ready to adjust their prices. Look, the supply of CBD isolate is huge. If you want to compete, you better adjust your prices because at some point, you're just not going to be able to. So, highly important to change those prices, I think, to be able to compete. Swedish hemp import signals potential for domestic production. I think that's definitely where America is headed. That as we begin to import more hemp, we begin to realize, oh gosh, well, how about we just make domestic production? Because why do we need to keep like importing this in when we could grow it in our own backyards? Okay. What else we got? CBD flowers in Canada. Oh, in the article also, the research project sees market for hemp seed oil and skincare. German's medical cannabis market. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that's it. All right, so those are some of the great headlines in hemp news around the world. And let's go ahead and get started with our broadcast today. So Stuart, welcome again as my wonderful guest for today. I'm so thankful that you're here. So go ahead and tell my audience who you are and where you come from and how did you come to work in the cannabis and hemp space?
Well, my name's Stuart Lyle. I have an enrolled agent license, so I am licensed through the U.S. Department of Treasury to represent taxpayers with audits and things. I've worked in the tax accounting industry for 16 years now, and I got started with the cannabis when I moved up to Alaska 6 years ago, and I was talking at a tax seminar with local preparers, and nobody really wanted to touch it. So I thought, well, okay, then I guess this would be good to grow my business. So I started looking into it, and at first people were like, oh, I don't want to touch it, it's illegal, but that's kind of died down. It's pretty, you know, pretty basic, just really that one obstacle in the way, the 280E. But so I just started looking into it and talking with some of the cannabis businesses here in Anchorage and been growing that area of my business ever since.
Oh, sorry. Got a loud washing machine in the back, so had to mute for a second. Well, that's super awesome. So it really is something where, like, people very much in the beginning, people were like scared of it, and now we're 6 years into the industry. Well, 5 years technically, but we're into the industry, and Alaska, was the third state to legalize recreational cannabis. And it's been a game of figuring out how to do business in a world where there's no banking accounts. You can't have a bank account in the cannabis industry. And even now, as I have learned, even in hemp, which is legal nationally and legal statewide, you still can't have a bank account. So it becomes a very now you could make up some things and like create some structures where like you funnel some money around and you can make it work. But really, to be upfront and honest in a world that we all want to be authentic in, and we get slapped on the hand if we're not authentic, we're still told you can't have a bank account. You can't have traditional banking kinds of things. And that'll be a broadcast for another time. And I pray that that's moving. We've seen some recent moves in the U.S. House to with the Safe Banking Act to be able to allow hemp businesses to have bank accounts. But in the meantime, it's a cash business. The problem with cash businesses is that sometimes you lose that reporting capability because you got to track every penny. In order to be a good steward of your finances, you need to track every penny. And sometimes with cash businesses, it can be harder to track all those things when it's just cash, right? Every penny counts. So, okay, well, thank you, Stuart. So let's get right into some of the meat and if we like to say meat and potatoes of the accounting purposes. Now, you can make or break your business by not having good accounting tips and bookkeeping tips. So focusing specifically on the hemp businesses of growers, producers, and even retailers, can you give us some like bookkeeping and accounting tips that'll make things run a little smoother and maybe then make taxes easier at the end of the year?
Well, the biggest obstacle this industry has is with the Section 280E that you can only deduct cost of goods sold. You really have to know what is cost of goods sold. Some people claim, oh, well, it's running my business. But cost of goods sold really is the expenses that go into the product that is actually sold. Not every expense in the business is considered cost of goods sold, even though every expense in the business is needed to operate and sell those goods. So that's really the big obstacle is people say, oh, well, it was part of my cost of goods sold.
Okay.
And, if it's not like direct labor into growing the cannabis or hemp, then, that's not considered cost of goods sold, like employees at a retail store are
Okay.
not part of cost of goods sold. So it's
Right.
really can be confusing. And with it being you can only deduct cost of goods sold, you could have an audit and have a lot of expenses, void, and the auditor said, nope, here's you a big tax bill now.
Right. So with that, that's with the cannabis industry, right? The one that gets you high. So with the hemp industry, with regards to just agriculture being a legal product nationally and or federally and here in the state, it's really about farming. It's a little different. But then when you get to the retail side and you're a cannabis retail store that sells marijuana, but you also sell CBD or hemp products, it becomes an accounting likely nightmare because you're trying to separate what you could have part of your business where your salaries would be under the hemp side, and then you could have deductions over there, but you're all selling it in the same building. So how would that work? And then you have farming, right? Your farming of your plant in the case of hemp is a little different than farming in the case of growing marijuana. I like to separate it as cannabis and hemp, although we all know it's the cannabis genus. It's all the same plant. But unfortunately, the way that the world is created, it's marijuana and then it's hemp. And so, or it's cannabis and it's hemp. And so hemp is it's an agricultural product. So what are some of the costs of goods sold, or rather, what are some of the deductions that a farm would be able to make?
Well, when you're farming it, the good thing about that is the majority of your expenses are definitely going into it. The cost of the labor, because you're directly, you know, farming the plants, all of the, nutrition and stuff for the soils and everything,
Right,
you know,
electricity, right? If you
different things. If you got the, indirect costs like electricity over the whole building, if it's a greenhouse or something, you do have part of that that does go into the cost of goods sold.
okay.
So the good thing about the growing side of it is they're not really subject to the 280E as much as the retail side. That's what really gets hit the hardest.
Right, right. So it's really interesting as we walk out this season of kind of this plant that's the same plant but separated in terms of taxation. It's going to be interesting to see how the IRS handles the hemp industry versus the cannabis industry, because hemp is not a controlled substance. So hemp doesn't fall under what is that, Schedule 1 or whatever.
The Schedule 1 of the Control Substance Act.
Yeah. So then technically hemp wouldn't fall under the 280E as cannabis does, because it's not, so it's just an agricultural plant. So it would definitely, apply some different tax guidelines, which is really important to have a good tax person that understands, the different pieces of it for sure. So when it comes to like bookkeeping, can you give some tips on like what are the things that, I assume businesses need to, hey, write down your income, keep track of your expenses, keep track of those two columns, keep track of good categories of how you spend your expenses and how you receive your income. But what are some good resources that people can use to kind of make good bookkeeping decisions?
Well, there's all kind of software out there for accounting purposes. QuickBooks, there's FreshBooks, all kind of different ones, and it's definitely good to, keep track of everything, not just so that if you're audited, you can, show the auditor you have good records, but the fact that you need to know if your business is making money or not.
Right.
Because I've seen people a lot, well, here's what I made, here's my box of receipts. What? I didn't make any money? So you want to keep up with things because you want to be able to see that, okay, I'm spending this much for, fertilizers and stuff. Maybe I can find it cheaper elsewhere.
Sure.
Or, maybe you've spent all this money on this strand of hemp or cannabis and it's just not selling good. So maybe you need to just cut that product out.
Right. And so that's really important. And I think just from a kingdom principle, okay, so the kingdom of God, we're bringing that's my mission. It's part of my mission is bringing that to earth. So a kingdom principle is just steward well what the Lord blesses you with. So if you steward well your finances and you're aware of where they're going and how they're being spent, then it's much easier to control them and guide them where they need to go. But if they're just all out of control because you just got a box of receipts and you don't have any lists and you don't have any understanding of where the money is going, and you could use QuickBooks, you can use even Microsoft Excel, and create and create just a list. I have a written list for mine. I just have a good old Columnar pad and just a list of things. So that keeps me, because I like to write it down, and then and I kind of double my efforts, because then I put it into my Excel sheet, and I can see the different expenses and what's being spent where. But I think you bring up a very valid point that business, everyone wants to be in business. Almost everybody does. I mean, I just don't. There's some people that have no desire and they're okay being an employee, and that's their thing. That's fine, and that's cool. Thank you. We need people like that. But at the same time, people that want to be in business, it's not just like, let me just get a business license and woo, I'm in business. Like, there's so many other pieces of creating sound foundation for your business. And I've had 11 businesses, but I've had now, back then, in the beginning of my business attempts, I had zero formal training in accounting, finances, profit and loss sheets, bookkeeping, all of that stuff. I had no training in that. And so inevitably, then my business would fall apart because it had no financial foundation. And so some things to think about too is, what would you say is one of the biggest costs for, maybe businesses in general, cannabis and hemp businesses? What are some of the biggest costs to keep in mind?
Well, I mean, the biggest cost, I mean, just the all your expenses, that you've got to do to get the business up and going, and get all your inventory products and stuff. Like the accounting side is not costly to hire someone, but it's
Right.
really, all your expenses you've got in the actual operation of your business that are going to be your biggest cost.
Right. Right. I think one that was in my personal life, my personal story, was payroll. That payroll can be such a tremendous cost, because it's not just in the way America does business. It's not just the cost of $15 an hour. Just paying out $15 an hour, $10 an hour. It's not that. It's that plus taxes. That plus
there's
workers' compensation. That plus additional expenses. And so you would think, okay, well, I want it to just be easy. Can it just be easy? It should be. I wish it was, but unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated to play the rules of the game, to understand that payroll. And that was my experience, was when I started I think it was my very first real business. I hired someone immediately out of the gate, hired an administrative assistant, and all of my working capital was eaten up by her salary within 3 months. And I was like, I was out. I wasn't generating, and that was it. And so, no. So, I really understand that you've got to be aware of expenses going into it. There's a reason why when you create a business plan, investors want you to look through all the financials and to consider them and research them and do what's needed in order to get an idea about that, instead of just, well, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to walk by faith, and run into it, make a ton of costly mistakes, right?
And I think definitely, like I said, with the cannabis business I've worked with, I mean, the biggest thing is probably the taxes on a business in general seem to be the expense that shocks people the most.
Right.
Things I run into is people go and do things, then they want advice about taxes.
Right.
When honestly, you should talk to someone first, because even just the way you set up your business, what entity you choose it to be as, can determine tax savings or not.
Right. So from the very beginning, it's important. And I take my clients through that. So we discuss, okay, what do you want to do here? How do we want to set this up? How much taxes do you want to pay? You know, and yeah, taxes are yeah, they're probably the biggest expense, you know, here, not to gossip, so I won't name specific businesses, but here in Alaska, we have seen some of our existing cannabis businesses be something like all of a sudden wake up one day and be $1.8 million in back tax debt. Okay, you didn't wake up one day. That wasn't like all of a sudden. That was, you didn't do your taxes. You got greedy. You didn't properly give where you needed to give. And I get it. I don't like paying taxes either, right? In fact, I've started to consider the hemp for healthcare model to move away from a tax and be more like a voluntary tithe, where we talk about like giving to a healthcare fund as a community instead of a forced taxation, right? Because people have issues with forced taxation. I get it, but at the same time, we all drive on the same roads, and thank God for a government that takes care of that, right? So there's some benefits, some give and take. But you don't just wake up one day and go, oh gosh, I'm $300,000 or $1 million behind in tax debt. No, you didn't put in the systems in the beginning to make sure that every penny was tracked and given where it needed to be given. Instead, I also have ideas where how about we don't tax like the first $10,000 or something that someone makes, or like a 20,000. So like give them like, you know, stop taxing the poor. I'm sorry, but the poor are just struggling to get through, you know?
Well, you've actually got what you're asking for.
Yes?
It's called a standard deduction on your tax return. The first, you know, 12,000, 18,000, or 24,000 based on the filing status is not taxable.
Okay, good.
But and probably, you know, another big expense of businesses, especially starting out entrepreneurs, is, ooh, I've got all this money, I can go spend it now.
Yes.
And not saving and thinking maybe, you know, not only should I pay estimated taxes, but maybe I need to put some of this money aside.
Savings? What? Savings? I'm sorry, we don't play like in the world.
I mean,
it seems like, you know what I mean? Like we have poor financial literacy. Hold on, Frank. Stop. No. I've got a kid over here trying for my attention. Now I have a dog trying for my attention. This is awesome. A great broadcast. So savings. So, okay, let's talk about another kingdom principle, tithing, right? Tithing. You return to God what is God's, and you give him 10% off the top of everything, and he'll continue to bless you. And I've seen it happen in my life over and over and over again. I'm a faithful tither. Without fail, I tithe. That's what I do. And so, because I've seen him provide for me in times when I was like, oh, I don't even know how I'm going to make this happen. He brings someone into my life, and woo, ta-da, it happens. So he's the great provider. So when it comes to taxes, you have to be disciplined, but not just taxes, with your finances. You have to be disciplined. Being disciplined doesn't feel good, does it? Denying our flesh doesn't feel good. It doesn't make us like, oh man, I feel so good about that. But when you've got money in savings, there's a sense of security there that feels real good too. So create that world for yourself. Stop it, dog. What's outside? Okay, friends, hold on just one moment. I have to do some quick. Okay, friends, sorry about that. I gotta put the dog outside. Okay. So good. So we understand finances, super important. Gotta track them. Gotta be willing to give back. Now, I don't know, however you feel about the tax policies, I wish it was a flat tax. I wish it was standard. It's not. It is what it is. And it's a whole bunch of like, how many pages is the IRS tax code, Stuart?
I have no clue. A lot.
A lot, right? So
Yes.
darn many that you have to like go to school and do tons of training just to be able to figure out how to get some money back from all the money that you need to that they want you to pay. Okay. Now, the hemp for healthcare concept is not about leveraging a huge amount of tax in order to get healthcare. It's more important that we take and turn profits that are made and put that towards healthcare. So that's the mission. But taxation is real. We got to deal with it. It's something that's just a part of it. And so you have to remember to what I'm hearing is take good care of the money. Make sure you're tracking it properly so you can control where the money is going and apply it appropriately. And then pay your taxes so you don't get behind. And all of a sudden, because the IRS will come after you. Man, they do. That's scary. Super. It's like the mafia or the mob. Like they come after you, man. They want their tax money for sure. So we've talked, Stuart, about some things, some terms that might be unfamiliar to those who are new to the world of just business in general, like cost of goods sold, and profit and loss statements. Can you give some definitions of what those mean and to help people kind of understand what they need to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, well, like the cost of goods sold, what that's talking about is your direct expenses that go into growing the hemp. So, like I said, that would be like your fertilizers, your soils, and the water used to grow it. And like I said, if you've got lighting in a greenhouse, you got electricity. But the cost of goods sold is not going to include the lights itself, or those are all your fixed assets. So when you think of cost of goods sold, you have to think of it as what expenses am I putting into this product that actually leave when I sell it?
Okay.
Whereas the planter boxes and lights stay in your, facility. They don't leave when you actually sell the product.
Okay. Okay, that's a great way to put it. So you really have that idea. But what about labor? Like people got to deal with the plants. Do you get
Hmm.
to, when they're
So
touching the plant, does that count?
yes, the cost of labor is part of your cost of goods sold. The direct labor, all of it is part of cost of goods sold. But then if your indirect labor, which would be the managers or stuff across, the whole store or something, part of those could be cost of goods sold. Maybe it'd be like a percentage of it, but not the whole amount.
Okay. So okay. So before we move on to a profit and loss statement, let me reiterate the importance, the absolute like imperative importance about meeting with a bookkeeper, an accountant, a tax service, an EA, a somebody before you begin business. Okay, because you really need to understand every one of these expenses and where they will go into in relation to your business. And so what you don't want to do is like conduct business for a year, 2 years, and then go see an accountant and go, okay, where do we put all this stuff? That would take so much time. And you could have wasted a lot of money putting money over here when it should have been done over here. And so building financial tax strategies and financial strategies in advance is called financial planning. It's not a cuss word, right? It's a good word. Like financial planning, vitally important for your business for success. So tell me about, what is a profit and loss statement?
A profit and loss statement is going to show, your income minus your expenses and let you see, if your business is making money or not. So, I mean, it's pretty standard. It's right. You can have them detailed or very just like a summary, but that'll at least let you see where your expenses are going that are eating up all that revenue coming in that you thought you had.
Like I had all this money, but right? And that's another
Like,
thing that I want to point out that people think that we're going to get into hemp and we're just going to make a buttload of cash. We're going to make a ton of money because blah, blah, blah. Be careful. Okay. It's not always that way. Let's just be real. It's not always that way. Some people come into it and they don't have proper controls in place. And then they show up after their first harvest and they can't get it sold, or they didn't think in advance, or they didn't create strategies in advance, and they're left holding the bag. And so not everyone succeeds. It's just like life. Not everyone succeeds. Now, my mission with Hemp for Healthcare is to make sure as many hemp businesses succeed as possible. I don't care if they're here in Alaska or in America or globally, because the more hemp we grow, the better for the planet. So I want hemp farmers to be business minded. And if they don't have that business mind, I want them to understand that in advance and hire out people who do, so that they build a solid team around them so they're successful. Because it's all about your foundation. It's all about how solid is your foundation. Can it weather any storm, right? Mine's in Jesus, praise God, that can weather any storm. So, but for your business, it's super important to have that set up foundation. So what are some of the other kind of reports, like a balance sheet or other things that help people understand their finances?
well, you have your balance sheet that will show you, what your expenses are, or income, and make sure that things are accurate. That's really what that sheet does. But out of, probably all the financial statements, one that doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's probably one of the most important, is the statement of cash flows.
All
And what
right.
that does is that shows the cash that's actually going in and out.
Yeah.
People think, "Ooh, I got all this, sales. I just sold $1 million worth." But if it's all on a contract to pay over the next 2 years, you have no money coming in. You cannot spend that $1 million.
Or I sold like $1 million, but yet I've got 999,000 in expenses.
Exactly. So, that's also one that people have to look into because,
Okay.
like I said, that looks at what actually is coming in or out of the business, not like I said, oh, well, here's $1 million contract. If it's going to be paid over the next 3 years, you don't have $1 million to spend right now.
Nope. Nope. And I mean, welcome to the world we live in. Super uncertain. You don't know what's going to come next. So don't count on the money till it's in your pocket.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's pretty much what the statement of cash flows is telling you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love that. I love that. So, well, thank you, Stuart, so much for sharing.
Right.
About It's been a great conversation. I want to real quick recap on what Hemp for Healthcare is. If this is your first broadcast and you're following me for the first time, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. I loved you. May the Lord bless you. May you continue to follow the mission. What is explaining hemp and what is Hemp for Healthcare? It's about the future. It's about the future of having hope again, of having a planet that's worth living on, of having just a world that we can really be proud of. But at this moment, when you can look around and you can see all the pain, all the suffering, and all the brokenness and all the pollution, you can see that things need to change. Here in America, we need a healthcare for all system. But I'll tell you, I don't support one at the federal level. I don't support a nationalized health service. Sorry, we're too big of a country. It's not going to work. We're too big of a population. So I came up with an idea. It's not mine. It's Jesus's. He gave it to me. and he's called me to do this as a mission for the planet. We start here in Alaska. So Hemp for Healthcare in Alaska is very simple. We grow hemp and then we tax it. Remember, we talked about maybe a tithe, maybe a 10 to 15% tithe, okay, off the biomass level, and we put that into a state centralized healthcare fund. Then we process that hemp into the thousands of different products that Alaskans can need. Housing, fuel, food. Remember, Alaska only makes 4% of her own food supply. Clothing, textiles, plastics. The list is tremendous of what we can do with hemp. And so then we sell those products on hempforhealthcare.com. Check that out in the comments below, right? So Hemp for Healthcare in the banner there, sorry. Hempforhealthcare.com sells hemp products. Then what happens is the profits from your purchase of hemp products goes into the healthcare fund to pay for healthcare for you, for your children, for your family, so that when you're sick, when you're in an emergency situation, when you're freaking out because you don't feel well and you want to go to the doctor, but you're so scared that you can't afford it, we end that. We end insurance companies. We end the belief that you should go into tremendous amounts of debt because you got sick. Okay? No more. No more. So we change how that's all going to play out with a single payer healthcare system. This is not government owned. This is not intended to be government owned. I don't want to live in a world where a governor or a legislature can come in and tell you that your healthcare is not important, so they're going to take the funding away. No, we need to take care of our people. If we have healthy people, then we have a healthy economy, right? That's how it works. So it's important that we change things up a little. And Hemp for Healthcare creates a reality where we can not have to tax you through the roof in a socialistic mindset. We can instead create a capitalistic industry and give you a socialistic benefit. Okay, so we are looking at that piece. Okay, you can learn more at hempforhealthcare.com. Contact me, I'll give you the whole spiel. There's two other pieces to the initiative, and that's the Industrial Hemp Prison Program, turning our prisons into industrial hemp processing and growing facilities, and then selling those products to the government. So the government will keep your tax dollars within the state instead of sending them to another state or sending them to China or sending them to wherever. They stay within the state. And then that money is reinvested into those prisoners to bring them up, okay, to heal them, to give them workshops and seminars and therapies that will heal them, set them free, get them delivered, and give them hemp-based economy kinds of skills, and then put them back out when they're all healed and set free. Not whenever the arbitrary number of years that a judge condemned them to is up. Instead, when they're ready, when they're set, when they're healed, give them hope. That's what the Industrial Hemp Prison Program does. And the last piece is the hemp houses for the homeless. If you know my story, I was once homeless. And it's extremely hard to focus on your own healing when you're more worried about where you're going to sleep and what you're going to eat. And if you're all alone and all isolated, who's there to help you? So the hemp houses for the homeless are about building a house entirely out of hemp, with every possible hemp product we can think of: hempcrete, hemp paint, hemp wood, hemp mattresses, all products that I can source for you today and get building a house that is entirely made out of hemp. So then we support the hemp industries, and then we place individuals who are homeless into these houses with a focus on recovery. They're given a case manager and they're given a support team that cheers them on, that says, come on, you can do this. You can get healed. We believe in you, right? Because wouldn't that be amazing? Instead of telling our homeless people, you're lazy, you're broken, you're worthless, instead looking at them like the human they are, they're just broken. That's all they are. They're just broken individuals, and they deserve a society that cares a lot more about them than what we do now. So the hemp houses for the homeless, the Industrial Hemp Prison Program, the healthcare for all, this is an entire initiative, right? It's a big, big plan, but it all starts when you buy hemp. When you buy hemp products, then you are changing the world. The more hemp we grow, the more carbon we sequester. The more hemp we grow, the more soil we clean. But the more hemp we grow, the more biodegradable plastics we create. The more food we create for the world, the more goodness that is given, right? So, but you have to start, it starts with you, okay? I'll sit out here all day long and I'll preach and I'll prophesy and I'll tell you what's going to happen. But until you spend your money on a hemp product instead of a oil-based product or petroleum-based product or cotton or a tree-based product, all of those things can be replaced with hemp. Okay, so when you start spending your money on hemp, then that's when all of this works. Okay, so please support me. If you love what I'm doing, please donate. Go to hempforhealthcare.com. There's a donate button. Click on that. And I am so thankful for your support. You have been the backbone of why I keep going, keep fighting, gonna do this. Just the way the world is moving. I'm not a huge fan, President Biden, of our current president, okay? But I have to say, as he continues to rail against oil, it's very clear that oil is not the future of Alaska, but hemp can be. So that's what I'm working on. If you want to support that, if you want to be a part of that team, come join me, call me, let's have a discussion. All right, so thank you so much for joining us. Stuart, how do people get a hold of you if they need some tax services prep or they need some advice? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to my website, LyleTaxServices.com. They can, my phone number is 907-677-0777. So a lot of easy sevens to remember.
Lots of sevens, yeah.
And then there's LyleTaxServices@gmail.com. So there's numerous ways you can get in touch with me and be glad to sit down and talk with people and see how they should get everything together so that their hemp business is successful.
Amen. Amen. And the great thing that I just a personal testimony, when I had a Zoom call with Stuart, he was able to give me great information about how to get some tax money back and how to move forward in a way that means I'll be getting good tax refunds in the future. So I really want to be just testify to that y'all should be working with Stuart. He's a great mind when it comes to all of that. So awesome. All right, well, let me go ahead and bless you and send you off to be the world changers that I'm calling you to be. Thank you again for joining us today. May the Lord bless you and may he keep you. May he lift up his face towards you, shine his grace upon you, and most of all, during this time, give you peace. All right, so God bless America. God bless Alaska. Next time, join us. We're going to be talking about testing. I'm so excited to talk about testing. Testing is vital in the hemp industry. And I'm hoping for ZaraHempLabs.com to be coming on and joining us for next week. So God bless you. We'll see you guys all next time. Bye.